Hey everyone, welcome to Kajal TV. I'm Kajal V. Patel, and this is the place if you're a busy mama and you want to learn simple ways to stress less, live mindfully, and raise mindful children. I am so excited about today's episode because I have a fantastic mindful mama here gonna dish about some really exciting things. So let me introduce you to her. Her name is Kajal Desai, and she is the co-founder of Doonya. It is a dance company that has transformed into the first large-scale Bollywood dance. And if you've ever seen, or if you ever like Bollywood music, you got to head to one of these classes. So not only is she an entrepreneur, get this, guys, she has been presented and she's appeared on Oprah, on the Dr. Oz show, on the Today Show, and so many other media outlets for Dunya. But along with being a successful entrepreneur, she's also a mom. She has a 2.5 beautiful little boy named Roshan, and I've had the honor to help her embark in her new journey of infusing mindfulness into her movement and dance classes that she teaches kids. So I did private coaching with her. She learned through my Mindful Beginnings curriculum, and she's flourished with it. Not only does she teach it in her classes, she's going to share how it trickles down and she shares it with her son. So without further ado, I want to give you a warm welcome, Kajal, and I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Thanks so much. I'm so honored to be doing this.
Well, just following you, let's just be honest. We'd actually never met in person, but we have just had this connection. I think that's the great thing about online. You can meet people and feel so connected to them and not even know them in person. But we've been connected for a while, and our motherhood journey started right around the same time. And so I feel like we have this bond together because we joke that our kids are total kindred spirits. And I just love your vulnerability in your post, how you share about motherhood, the humor that you infuse in it, but also not just sharing the tough moments, you also embrace and share how you're trying to infuse mindfulness into your life and your son's life. And that's what inspires me, because you're not just taking a tough moment and just being resolved or defeated. You're saying, well, you know what? I'm going to try to be better, and I'm going to try to help my son. And also, what I love, of course, you want to infuse it into the lives of other kids. So I just want to put that point out there that you're such an inspiration to me, too.
Oh, thank you so much. And I agree. I think, I was talking about you the other day and I said, oh, my friend Kajal. And then I realized that we've never actually met, but it does feel like that. And I'm glad that you found some inspiration. I think that as long as all of us as women, as moms, just continue to inspire each other, then the people that are going to benefit the most are our children.
I agree. So why don't we get started why don't you share how your personal mindfulness journey kind of unfolded?
Sure. So speaking of vulnerability, after my son was born, it was rough. I was extremely anxious. I've always been a worrier, but it was like tenfold. It was just something that even looking back now, I can't fully understand, even though it was me. Mm-hmm. So I was really anxious, and I was unhealthy. Like, I was losing weight in a very unhealthy way. I was like not eating, I wasn't sleeping, and I was just a mess. I was crying all the time. And, meditation and yoga, all of these things have been a part of my life, but not in a very personal way. Like, I kind of did them because I was in the fitness world and I was in this place where I was inspiring people. So I did a little bit of it. I used the Headspace app, but it wasn't something that I fully connected with. Mm-hmm. And I think it took just hitting an emotional rock bottom to realize that it was having an effect on Roshan, on my son. He felt stressed when he was around me. He cried more. When he wanted comforting, he wasn't coming to his mother, and that I think stung more than anything else. And that's really what led me to realize I needed to change. And through my parents and through a family friend, a friend's mom, actually, who is an extremely spiritual, mindful person, I started on my journey towards it, but I didn't really know it was called mindfulness. I think I was just becoming more self-aware. And then, you and I had connected via social media. And I just started paying more attention to the things that you were saying and the things that you were doing. And I think you were kind of also blossoming into this a bit more, this direction as all of this was happening. So I think I found you at the right time, and all of those factors came together in a beautiful way. And I was able to kind of create my own practice through the guidance of, all three of these places.
That's amazing. So you mentioned that your parents. So is this something that was did you have a foundation or any sort of exposure when you were younger? I'm just curious.
Exposure, not foundation. So I knew of it. I would say that it was more connected to religion and, a spirituality through that point. My dad does, yoga and meditation every day now, but he didn't necessarily do it growing up. He just talked about it a lot, but now it's like every morning. And so it's been great to see over the past few years. And, again, like my parents, I think them too, they believe in it, and they are truly, encouraging of it, but they didn't have their own practice that I kind of followed. So, exposure, but not necessarily something that I really understood.
That's amazing. Because I think it's also beautiful, because I share a little bit that my parents talked about it, but more so my dad than my mom. But me going on this journey has actually opened my parents up. So I want to share that, because you're also like your parents having, being a guiding force to you, or, inspiring you. It could also even go the other way around as well, where you as a mom could be doing it and you could inspire your partner or parents or anyone else. So I think that's really beautiful that you have that trifecta in a connection and a group of support. That's wonderful.
100%.
So we, like I mentioned before, we connected, and you came to me because you were really interested. You had these dance and these movement classes that you were teaching children, and you had this kind of drive that, I want to infuse mindfulness into these classes. So that's kind of how we connected and working more closely together. And so share with me, if you don't mind, what went through your head when you were being inspired to add that to your class?
Yeah. So I was teaching, I had always previously taught mainly just Bollywood dance, Bollywood dance and techniques to children. And then I got the opportunity to start teaching in the Montessori school that my son was going to, that I had enrolled him in. And through that, I think it was developing in our house a little bit. Like I was trying little things here and there that I would see you do, or that I would just read about. And, one day it clicked that if I was going to be in a school system, I wanted to do more. I wanted to actually, continue to bring dance, because I love the joy in movement, but I saw this connection with being mindful and teaching dance through that, teaching movement through that. So, really focusing on the senses and how all of that connects. And then it was just, I think you had posted a video of what you do in the classrooms, and it clicked. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a perfect marriage of what I do and what I could incorporate. And it was kind of what I was thinking in my head, and it just made it clear when I saw your video.
That's amazing. And what I love about the aspect of you bringing movement into it is because a lot of times parents come to me and will be like, my child can't sit still. And because you work with young children too, right? Tell us what ages you work with.
They start at 3.
Yeah.
So some of them are not even quite 3, because it's based on how they do their classes. So they start at 3, and then, the bulk is that 3 and 4 age group. But some of them go up to like 7.
Yeah. So I just wanted to let moms know that, because you do work with younger kids. And I always preface that if your child can't sit still, infuse this through movement, because helping them being connected to their body is mindfulness, like them understanding the sensations, how it feels. So I think it's just brilliant that you are blending those two together and hopefully create a new idea of what mindfulness is, because we all have this idea that it has to be my child sitting there in lotus pose with their eyes closed, chanting ohms. And that's not accessible to most kids, Not, I mean, I share pictures of my son doing it. It's like 30 seconds, and that's like, great job. So I think that's a great point for moms to know that I think play and dance and movement is a perfect way of infusing breathing and mindfulness. So I think it's brilliant that you're infusing that together.
Oh, thank you.
Share a little bit about what you like. Some of the things that you do that you've seen that kind of take with kids, because all kids are a little bit different, but just a few things that you've enjoyed teaching and that the children have enjoyed.
What's been really great for me is learning more about breath control and different breathing exercises and breathing games. I make sure to start each class with that just to get like the focus going. I did have to learn the hard way that I have to do it with them standing, because if they sit, I lose them, and there's all kinds of mess. So you have to kind of learn the hard way. But the breathing has been an amazing part for me to learn from you, and then also be able to put out to them, and just seeing how they've developed through it. A lot of them have better breath control now than they did when we started. And for kids that young, it's definitely hard. Like taking a deep breath is not something that comes easy to a 3-year-old. And so that's been an amazing part of it. And then when I really put it with the dance, what's been cool is I've started saying things, a lot of it is just language in terms of using the language to stay mindful. So we talk about the senses a lot, and I'll say, all right, we're going to use just our hearing and sight. We're not going to use anything else right now. And so they know to stay quiet without me having to be like, stay quiet, don't talk. Because the minute you say that, it's done.
Yes.
Right? Focusing on, we're just going to look and listen. And that helps. And then I will do moves in patterns, again, without saying it. And it's amazing to see them start to pick up on the patterns. So I'm not telling them what's next, but they're following me with the music, and it's all connected. And they have to stay mindful, otherwise they can't pick up the patterns. And so it's been so cool seeing that. And they feel such a sense of pride. Just yesterday, I was working with a group, and I was doing something in a pattern, and the kid goes, "Oh, it's too slow and 4/5." Like the minute he figured it out, he was so proud of himself. And, all of that is connected. That goes to confidence, that goes to everything. And so I think just seeing it come together like that has been amazing.
That's great. And I think just, using the right words, like how you just said that's a great parenting tip too, as regarding like clear, concise instructions. So that was a great tip for parenting. That's awesome. So I'm going to, just because I something popped in my head, I'm going to backtrack for a second. You mentioned so openly that when you first were a mother, you were experiencing the anxiety, and you would come upon these tools. So with the tools that you've been learning from your own practice, or maybe even, teaching kids, I find that when I'm teaching kids, I feel like it's a practice for me because it's so simple. Do you agree with that with you?
100. Yeah, 100.
It's like, because we're learning it too, right? Like we're not like in 8th grade of mindfulness. We are also like in kindergarten class of mindfulness. So we're all on the same page together. But when you started infusing this into your own life, like, can you give us like what your practice kind of looks like?
Sure. So, I think it started with just very simply being like, I'm just going to start taking deep breaths, So the minute I would start to feel, I was feeling like a tightness in my chest, and my head would get carried away with the what ifs and what ifs and and I told myself that I was going to become more aware of when the feelings were starting and not when it had gotten out of control already. The minute I started to feel a little bit, and that required a lot of, just kind of self-awareness of your body, and telling myself I was going to be more in tune with it. And as I got better at that, I would take that chance to take a break, and start doing some deep breaths. Just close my eyes, deep breaths, chanting Om. Because I did grow up in a pretty religious household, not, strictly, but we did a lot of like mantras and bhajans and things. And so I would even just start singing some of those, anything that was calming to me. And it could be a song on the radio. If something is calming, I would just start singing it. And that was kind of the first step. From there, I started to note, times of the day where I might feel a little bit more anxious or tired or sad. Like it was all connected to what was going on, and I didn't realize it until I started becoming aware of it. And when that happened, I set reminders in my phone for that time of day. And right before it, so like, if I know that I have a 3 p.m. crash, I have a reminder at like 2:45 that goes off for me to take a break. And I would take a break. I would do something that brings me joy. So it might be a 5-minute dance break. It might be that I'm feeling tired and I just need to take some breaths. I don't feel like dancing, so it could be anything in the moment. I might go read a blog post that I had saved from earlier, but something that brings me joy. And then I think the other big thing that I incorporated was just infusing some gratitude before I went to sleep. So, keeping a journal next to my bed, writing down like 2 or 3 things that just brightened my day, and focusing only on those, not focusing on what I didn't accomplish, not focusing on what went wrong, but only focusing on what I did do and the positive things that happened. Because it takes time to realize that the negative things that happen in your day, you can't change them anyway. So thinking about them over and over is not going to help you. But somehow focusing on the positive takes that positive into the next day. And so you don't have to focus on what went wrong, because you're automatically going to enter the next day focusing on what you can do instead of what you can't or didn't. And I think those 3 things were really what helped the most. And then finally, just recently, starting to do some yoga in the morning. So my husband, and I cannot believe that he joins me, but doing some sun salutations in the morning, some breathing. It's off and on.
Yeah.
but you were talking earlier about how sometimes your spouse picks up on things, and sometimes they're like children too. So if you say, you should do this, it's probably not going to happen. Yeah. But when you lead by observation, and when they see that it's making a difference in your life, they might be like, hey, I'm trying to.
Absolutely. I think we are similar in that type too, because I'm an anxious type as well. And I do talk a lot about understanding your stress type. And I think you so brilliantly were able to define, this is my unique stress pattern. And then you really nailed it when you're like, okay, rather than getting into the space where I go in autopilot and it's like, boom, I'm in like meltdown or like complete anxious city, you're stopping it. And so, I mean, from hearing your practice, if I had to guess, like your self-awareness of maybe like, putting in a check-in point before you go down a spiral, or your midday break, which is brilliant, or your evening routine. I mean, those infusing of mindful moments of self-care, I mean, what could I guess? It's like 5 to 7 minutes, or like something like very
short. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've seen a transformation in your life because of those those moments that you're just more self-aware. So I'm so proud of you. That is just
Thank
so
you.
great. And of course, like for any of the moms out there, of course it's not that anxiety just goes away. It's just that we're more aware when that stress response is happening. Or for some people, the stress response is fight, right? It's anger, impatience, frustration. And for others, shutting down, like feeling lack of motivation. It's about like learning the patterns in your body, because there's always a sensation that's happening in your body before you go into full stress mode. So just becoming aware of what your stress pattern is, and then hijacking, or basically like creating a interrupt through breathing and through dancing. Oh, guys, I just want to put a plug in here. If you haven't seen one of Kajal's dance breaks, like on her Instagram, it's like you feel like you're watching a dancing of the stars. It's like you can't keep your eyes off her. So it's like exciting and entertaining to watch her do her dance breaks. So thank you for inspiring us with that. But yeah, I think that's brilliant. So that is your practice, okay? And you talked about what you do in your classes and how you infuse it. Now, let's talk about Roshan and your journey with him as a mom, and where it's taken you and how that's evolved.
Yeah, it's been so fun. When I was pregnant, there were a couple of things that, I told myself that I wanted to do as a parent. One thing, especially when I found out I was having a boy, was that, in general, I think boys are told, boys don't cry and things, but like in culturally, it's an even bigger deal in the Indian culture where, boys aren't supposed to show emotion, and they're not supposed to do certain things that are considered feminine and all this. So I think I had the strong desire to make sure that did not happen. that point did not come across to him, because it's something I completely disagree with. I think emotions are meant to be expressed. That's why they exist. But I think it's more controlling them before they can control you, and learning how that can happen. So, the most amazing thing for me is trying to find how mindfulness can help Roshan express what he needs to express, whether that is anger or whether it is sadness, understanding the difference between just whining and actually having something to complain about,
Mm-hmm.
So it's been great in that sense. He totally now, not every time, but there's been so many times where he's having a tantrum and I'm just kind of looking at him. I've learned not to react. And I think that's through my own mindfulness practice that's been able to happen. I just kind of watch him. And as he starts calming down, I'll be like, all right, are you okay now? We can talk as soon as you're okay, because I really want to know what happened. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest thing that has helped is that every time he comes down from the tantrum, we talk about it. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of times, the easy thing to do is just kind of distract them and move on. But when we are at home and we do have the time and the space, I always talk about it, because I think it's important for him to also understand why he's expressing himself the way he is. Mm-hmm. And so it's great, because now sometimes I don't even ask, and he'll say, Mommy wanted me to put my shoes on. I don't want to put shoes on. And I got mad, and so I kicked. And I'm not supposed to kick. He totally gets it. Yeah. He's able to express it, which is so huge. And so, then I'm able to tell him back, like, all right, I'll try to respect you and give you a little bit more time. If you need to put them on 5 minutes later, I'll try not to rush you. So we can have these conversations as if he's like a grown up. But I think it helps him get to that space of also becoming aware of why he's reacting in certain ways. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, the deep breath thing. At first I tried to just attack it with, Roshan, you need to take deep breaths. But instead, what I realized worked better is I got really mad at him one day, and then I realized that like what I was doing was not helping. And so I looked at him and I was like, Mommy needs a break. And I went into his like playroom. He has one of those little tent things. And I sat inside there and I started taking deep breaths and I started chanting Om. And he just kind of watched me. And then he came in there and sat with me and joined me. And so then the next time he got upset, I was like, do you think we need a break? And he on his own went in the little tent and, did what he needed to do, had some quiet time. And it was just so beautiful to see because, I think he knows he told his dad the other day that he needed to take deep breaths.
See, they're doing the work for us.
Again, and I like to point out that this isn't something that happens all the time. Our house is not perfect. It's glimpses. Yeah. But I really do think those glimpses grow as they get older and start to understand more. And what we're working for is something that's long lasting. It's not about just today that it worked. It's something that will become a part of who they are and how they deal with things.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that because, and I want to make it clear too, because I don't remember what it was, but you had posted one time about like Roshan was having like, I think you cut his apple away that he didn't want something like that. And then you just kind of like looked at him and you just let him, you shared like you just let him write it out. And at the end, he told you, he's like, Mommy, I feel better now.
He said, I'm okay now.
Oh, yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay now. And Ayan says, I feel better now. But it's the same idea. It's just like you're giving them the space to ride it out and recognize. And it's not easy because then I share that it's not easy. But being able to give yourself the space. And I think you illustrated the correct or the appropriate way. Because so many times, I had this fear too. Like if I walk away from him when he's having a tantrum, is he going to think I'm abandoning him? But I think you put it in a beautiful way of, okay, you tell him I'm taking a break and you're modeling what it means to constructively express your feelings. And it's okay to take a moment to feel safe and to take your space to feel safe again. And I think that's the new way, because I'm definitely one of the people on that wagon of wanting to see timeouts go and time-ins come in. And you just illustrated is what a time-in looks like for anyone who doesn't really understand what a time-in is. So, when you're with Roshan, like, would you mind sharing, like, how do you, like fun ways, how do you infuse, like, breathing into his, like, normal day-to-day life, or do you do it every day, or is it like how frequently do you do it?
I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't happen every day. I would like for it to, but it doesn't always. It also just depends on kind of his mood and my mood, to be honest. But we do try to do some breathing as part of his kind of calm down bedtime routine. And a lot of that I've gotten from the course I did with you and what I do in the schools. I've brought that into what we do before he goes to bed. So we do the good night yoga at night. I just bought the morning one and we haven't done it yet, but I really want to. It's just with the good night one, I was able to memorize it because if I use the book, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
So the morning one is more complicated. so I'm like, I have to take the time to learn it first. But the goodnight yoga has been amazing. So that's a good place where, and I make sure we're breathing properly through each stretch. So he's doing that. And then other times it really has just been, when I feel like he is a little frustrated or he just needs something to calm him down, but I'll do it in a fun way, like I would do in a class where I'll turn on music to get his attention. Because if I just like stop and breathe, he's not going to do it. But I'll turn on music to get his attention. We'll dance a little, and then I'll turn on a softer song, and we'll actually do something that's slower. We'll breathe. He'll listen to his heart and see if his heart is getting slow. Heartbeat's getting slower. Things like that. So I incorporate it that way as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And I think one thing to really highlight about what you just said is that, it's like we all want our children to learn math, but it's not that we do math problems every single day and they get it, that it's just consistency. And sometimes it's not every single day, but, it is just creating a pattern that will become. Oh, I hope that we didn't lose you. It'll just become a pattern that eventually, like when it's like we're watering it, and it doesn't necessarily, like, all plants don't need to be watered every single day. Just like we don't have to be drilling math into their mind every single day for them to get it. And I think that's important to know, because we don't want this to be another thing, like, oh, for a mom to be like, oh, I'm already, like, trying to raise him to be, like, well educated, or like however you want him to be successful and well rounded. And then, oh my gosh, this is another thing I have to add. It's not like that. And another thing that I think you illustrated, which I like to always say, it's like a lot of times with our practice of being mindful, it's that you had mentioned, like, just recognizing when he's in a good mood or he's a receptive mood. And that is just being present. It's not like you can plan that. Well, oh, okay, after his nap today, we're going to do some yoga and mindfulness. It's like, no, like, it's just a very organic thing. You're like, oh, the energy feels good right now. Let's give it a try. Or this might be a good teaching moment. Why don't we try to infuse it? So I love the music thing. I'm going to definitely try that. I haven't done that, like the loud music and then the soft music. I really want to give that a try. So I love that tip. So the last thing I want to ask you is that, say you had a mom or someone, mom friend that you knew, and she was on the fence of, I don't know if I could, if I don't know mindfulness, or I don't practice mindfulness regularly enough. Can I actually teach my child? Will this work? If they had any reservations and someone came to you, what would you tell them?
I think the best part about mindfulness is that it's not something that you have to necessarily understand or learn ahead of time. When people would use the term meditation and you should meditate, I would immediately feel intimidated and get scared. But I think that what mindfulness has become, and what I've really learned about it, is it's something that's so approachable. And so that's the first thing, is it doesn't matter if you know nothing about it. I think it just makes sense. Like, the moment you start learning more about it, it just makes sense and it feels natural. So, the intimidation factor should definitely not be there. When it comes to, time commitment or financial investment, I can honestly say that at the time that I did it, we were in a very tight place financially. The budget was tight. I was really worried about whether I should be doing it, or if I could afford to add something that, I may or may not see a return on right away. And what I realized is that just like we put in investment for, our kids to take soccer classes or karate classes or swimming classes, or, the investment and time we put into, like, schoolwork, this is all only going to help them be better at everything that they do. It's going to help them navigate through life in a way where they feel confident and secure. And if there's anything we should be putting time and money into, it's that. Because, we can't control their path moving forward. All we can do is give them the tools to be able to do it themselves. And lastly, I think the best part about this is that it's twofold. Like, you're learning along the way. My practice is getting stronger because I'm teaching it. If I wasn't teaching it, I may have, dropped some of it too. But when you're practicing what you preach, it makes a big difference. You're learning together along the way. So the benefits really are wide. It's not something that's, like, just for you. I do believe that as long as you can connect with your children or connect with whoever you're teaching in any way, this is something that you can bring into that connection. So that's definitely something that I would encourage people to try and do.
Oh, I had chills when you were saying that. So that was like my spirit saying, that's a hell yes. So
no, after that, there's something wrong with you. No, I'm just
I could have said that better myself. So, that gave you a good feel. Well, thank you, Kajal, so much for sharing your honesty about your journey. And thank you for doing the amazing work that you're doing. And thank you for being a mindful mama. So I want to give you an opportunity. If moms want to connect with you and follow you, can you give us where on Facebook or Instagram where they can connect with you?
Sure. I'm most active on Instagram, and it's Kajal Dancer, so Kajal Dancer, all one word. And then on Facebook, I have a Facebook page, and I swear I'm going to do better about building that. But so maybe if I get more people following me, I will. And that is Kajal Desai Dance and Wellness. And I'm still trying to figure out exactly um, who I am and what I want to put out there, which is why it's a slow progression. But if there's anything I've learned through mindfulness, it's that we have to take our time and let it flow in the way it's meant to flow. And if that means it takes a little bit longer, in the end, it's not going to matter that it took 6 months instead of one. And I just want to make sure that what I'm putting out there is true to myself. So those are things that's also good for you guys to remember as well, is just continue doing things that are purely authentic and true to yourselves.
Absolutely. That's the perfect place to end. Well, thank you again, Kajal. And for everyone who's watching, thank you so much for watching. And I'll check you on the next episode of Sejal TV. Bye, guys.